of course, the big news out of Bloomington, Calbert Cheaney back in the IU basketball family and on staff. Previously under Tom Crean, he was the DBO, Director of Basketball Operations. Most recently, he has been, for the last 2 years, the assistant to player development in the NBA for the Pacers. And now he has taken that position for Indiana. And that's a big for Indiana in a lot of ways. It brings the all-time leading scorer in the Big Ten back. It brings a favorite son back. And more importantly to me, it puts the heir apparent in a seat at Bloomington already for Mike Woodson. So laid all that on you.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me before we got started. I'm not convinced that Calbert Cheaney would be the heir apparent. I'm not convinced that A, I don't know him well enough to know if that's what he wants to do, and B, I'm not convinced that they're going to, and I know that Louisville would hire a guy as the head coach who has no head coaching experience. But I'm glad that he's back on board. He knows the program as a player. He knows the program as a coach. He's got great interpersonal relationship skills. And it brings him back to a place where he and Mike Woodson are probably, as a pair, the two most acclaimed Indiana players that weren't part of national championship teams. So maybe they can get one as coaches that they couldn't get as players. How's that?
Well, and you add Jordan Hulls to that mix, who played on the last team to be ranked number 1.
Right.
But is also still a part of the Bob Knight coaching tree via his grandfather, who came to Bloomington from West Point with Bob Knight. So now you had all these years where Indiana purposely went away from Bob Knight, went away from anybody related to Bob Knight. That's why I mentioned Bob Knight was the first coach at Indiana that was not an IU graduate. And then there were 5 in succession, not counting Dan Dockage's interim turn with Davis, Sampson, Crean. There was, I'm missing somebody. The dark period. That's just the dark period.
There's just 4, but that's okay.
Is it just 4? But anyway, yeah. But the point is they did that and with purpose, and now it's a 180. And not only is it a 180, man, they're going to load up. You've got Mike Woodson. Now you're going to have Calbert Cheaney, and you have Jordan Hulls, who not only you're talking 3 different generation of Indiana fans as well, generations, fans of the late 70s, 80. Then you go up to Calbert in the 90s with those great teams, and then Jordan Hulls in the 2000s. So they're covering a big swath of fans as well with that, which I didn't think about, and I don't think that had anything to do with it. But it's a nice broad reach. Indiana has done a lot of things wrong in the last several years, but they've been doing some things right, it seems.
Yeah, and don't forget that Scott Dolson's a former IU basketball manager on the last national championship team. So that
maybe that's why the reason that they're starting to do some things right.
Yeah, I think enough time has passed from the Knight firing, and he's reconciliated with the university enough that I think they have no longer run from his past and his dismissal from IU. And I think it's always good to have former players around in various roles because they understand the demands of the job. They understand the psychology of the job. They understand the expectations of the job, and they understand the traditions of the job, and they don't run from that stuff. And that's good because it's very important to a lot of fans in so many different ways. It might not be to recruits, and there's always a balancing act between doing what's best for recruits, but fans do pay the bills, and fans do support the program at a very high level. I saw you went back on top in the Big Ten this year in attendance, and people like to see Jordan Hull's on the bench. They're going to like to stand and give Calbert Cheaney an ovation when he comes back. Next week, if they bring him to Hubers, he'll get another standing ovation. So, as you mentioned, 3 different eras. Woody was 76 to 80, Calbert was 89 to 93, and Jordan Hulls was 2009 to 2013. So they can all share their stories about Indiana basketball to the current players.
Well, and plus you have Mike Woodson had a 10-year run as a player in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how long his I don't have his Wikipedia pulled up, how long his coaching career was.
Yeah, I think he was a head coach for about 8 years.
And then an assistant for another couple. So another decade basically coaching in the NBA. You've got Calbert Cheaney with his 13-year NBA career, 5 years coaching. Jordan Hulls, while not playing in the NBA, he had a very, very successful career overseas and only left to take this job. So that's something that all of the guys that they're recruiting can see. These guys are players, so they know what it takes to play at a high level, and to play at the place where they want to be, which is the NBA.
And I think for a lot of them, their biggest value is relating to the parents. The kids might not really, I'm sure they don't remember Woodson or.
Oh no! It's funny you say this. I just said this earlier. I said, even with Calbert, I said, now the kids aren't going to know who he is, but the fathers will know who Calbert is.
And the grandfathers. And what's even more important than that is that those guys, I think, relate well to parents and can get their trust to get them on board, to trusting them to send their children to be with that coaching staff, where they can explain to them, you can get great basketball coaching a lot of places. You can get great facilities a lot of places. You can play against great competition in a lot of places. But if you come to Indiana and you do what you're supposed to do, it is the payoffs last a lifetime. People will remember you for the rest of your life, and you'll be honored. You might have a chance to come back and work at the university or find a job in the Bloomington area. And other schools sell the same thing. I mean, Duke sells that, Kentucky sells that, everybody sells that. And I think at times at Indiana, that's one of the things that kind of got off track during the coaching turnovers. But now there's more of a sense of a unity among the different generation of guys, and you can sell that and say, there's a lifetime of benefits to come here and play basketball.
And it's funny. I think that, and I know that there's going to be certain fans that disagree, but those are just Bob Knight fans. But I think that most parents today would not want their kid to play for Bob Knight. But I think most kids today would want their kid to play for somebody who played for Bob Knight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I basically agree with that. I mean, Coach Knight would have had to change his ways to survive in today's environment.
And that was never going to happen.
Probably not. He's a smart enough guy, though, that he would have had to know if he was going to have a career, he's going to have to change his ways early on. He would have had to. But I agree with you. I mean, you can keep a lot of the good parts of Coach Knight that get overshadowed and forgotten because of some of his antics, and those are still valuable traits to carry forward. And I think, that these guys will help do that, in terms of look at Buckner, who's the chairman of the board of trustees. Look at Scott May, who's one of the most successful businessmen in Bloomington. Look at Mike Woodson, who's now the IU coach. Look at what Wayne Radford was at Cook Incorporated. John Kamstra is either first or second in command at Cook Incorporated. He was a former IU basketball player. Steve Reen was a dentist. John Laskowski is a businessman in Bloomington. I can go on and on. That these guys, Ted Kitchell,
the guy from Clarksville,
Chuck Franz,
runs
Jimmy
Fritz Lick.
Cruz. I mean, I can go on and on with a lot of these guys' of success. I mean, Cody Zeller's going to be a success, and no matter what he does.
Calbert Cheaney is, and
Calbert Cheaney.
this is actually where I was going with this, and Kenneth hit my point. Calbert is one of the guys you never heard anything bad about, but most of these guys, hardly any of them do you hear bad things about. They take care of business. They are good kids. We're good kids. They're good people. They do good things, and that's what I meant by. I think most parents would love for their kids to play for somebody who played for Bob Knight. While he instilled the things that they all love, they may not have all liked how it got there, but sometimes you don't like to see how the sausage is made, man. But certain things have to be done to make the sausage. But Indiana getting to this point now of this is Calbert is also, this is a reaction to trying to find a way to bring kids in to give them another reason to choose IU because it is becoming, it's more and more difficult. I mean, it doesn't matter how good a kid is, like the Cam Spencer kid. He's got other options because maybe he's got the 1 year left. Maybe his particular point of study, Georgetown, which is a great school, has that one program. I'm going to go do that because I'm not playing pro ball the rest of my life. So it's just another way of Indiana bringing in this higher elite level of recruit, which they are starting to do now. But that is something that has to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Cam Spencer's looking for. A guy that waits this late in the process. I mean, I would think he's pretty savvy. Supply and demand. There aren't many guys left. He's got a skill that's very desirable, and he's calling the shots now. I mean, there's one of him and a lot of schools that need him, and I don't know what it is. He's looking for an NIL deal. He's looking for a chance to win an NCAA championship. He's looking for a chance to play more minutes close to home. I don't know what on his list of things that are important to him to make the decision, but what Indiana can do if they are recruiting him, and I guess they've contacted him, is to sell a chance to be, part of the basketball family and, be on a good team.